This is Park Life. I'm your host, Michael Croker. Meet Nigel Benton, co-owner and publisher of Australasian Leisure Management, Australia and New Zealand's only magazine for professionals in all areas of the leisure industry. We caught up at the recent Australian Amusement, Leisure and Recreation Association's 2022 Conference and Showcase. Passionate and fearless in pursuing his goals, we took some time to talk through his industry life so far. Now don't forget, if you're enjoying Park Life, please do take the time to rate, review and share. That all helps in raising the podcast profile. Okay, here we go. Welcome along to another episode of Park Life. We're here at the AALARA Conference again for 2022. I'm sitting with Nigel Benton, and Nigel, hopefully I get this right, the founder and editor of Australasian Leisure Management. How was that?
Close. You got the Australasian right, which is important, but probably not important to Australians because Australians don't really get.
Well, why don't you do your own introduction?
Australasia is, but Australasia is very important to New Zealanders. So it's funny how that different name plays out in two pretty similar countries.
But it is Australasian Leisure Management, yeah?
We started as Australian, and then we took over a New Zealand publication. Almost 20 years ago, and then we added the AS in there.
Can we just, before we dig into some of your backstory, can we just go and understand what ALM actually is for people that don't know?
Yeah. We're essentially a business-to-business magazine, a trade magazine for people who work in the business of leisure. And we take a very wide view of leisure that includes aquatics, attractions, entertainment, events, sport, venues and the like. Really what the management of other people's out-of-home free time. And so that's what we cover in terms of being a print magazine, which is features-based, and we've now produced for 25 years. And then a news-based website. Everybody gets their news online these days that complements the magazine. The two complement each other in providing an industry news service. So people in the industry know where funding's available, what developments are underway, who's taken what jobs, what innovations there's been, some of the issues the industry is facing as well, so that we equip people so that they can do their job better in providing for other people's out-of-home free time. And even if it sometimes takes a very wide view, one sector can learn from another sector as to how people are spending, how they're marketing. People only have a certain amount of discretionary spend. So where are they putting their dollars? Are they going to cinemas? Are they going to theme parks? Are they investing in things close to home and working out and joining gyms or going to pools or local sporting events? So that sort of way that people spread their discretionary dollar is of interest to all sectors because there's only so much to go around, and each sector wants to get as much of it as they can.
Well, can I go back in time? What gave you such a desire to be in service to the industry like you are through ALM and what it's doing? Where does that spring from? What's your background?
Yeah, my background was a first job in a museum. And at the time in the 80s, God, this is a long time ago, museums were sort of facing a challenge of having been dusty places where scientific stuff got stored and the public were a damn nuisance. And realising that they could change what they offered to be a place where people came, paid money, meant they could then develop more services and more products to offer. And so it was that transition as they became not a crusty old institution, but a visitor attraction. So that's where I started out. I then worked in tourism, international adventure tourism in the Middle East, which was huge fun.
Can we just stop there, because I don't want to get too far ahead too quick. When you say that's a lot of fun, what were you doing there?
I was leading adventure tour groups. We scuba dived and snorkeled in the Red Sea.
Wow.
We sailed on the Nile. We did not sort of pitons and sort of north face of the Eiger type climbing, but we'd climb Mount Sinai. So that was a very fun time. Poorly paid, but huge fun.
It must have been incredible.
Yeah, it was. It was, and I still have friends, both mainly Australians I work with, who are friends to this day, and also people in those countries where I'm still in contact with, and I know when they've had children or they've had their grandchildren in the family, which is a wonderful connection to have had.
So, and again, just to keep up with you, how do you then where do you move out from that experience? What do you go to?
Well, all along I found it quite easy to write about what I was doing. It became a sort of community.
Were you journaling?
Not really, no. It was before that. I did short courses in journalism just to sort of learn how to sort of hone a craft of writing about what I did. So I'd be published in various travel magazines and things like that, and heritage magazines, on top of what I was doing in sort of my day-to-day working life. And I found it quite easy to do. I don't think my writing style is particularly good, but there's a personal thing about I like joining up the dots to make sense of something, and then being able to share that other people can learn from and benefit from. And
where does that come from?
God knows, I really don't know. I mean, I wasn't particularly good at English at school, and I wasn't in any drama groups or things such as that, but just, I suppose it's just a desire to make sense of stuff. A lot of the time, which I find day-to-day life is a complete mystery, and but you try to work it out as to why things that happen impact other things, and then impact yourselves and then the general public.
So where do you move on from that next phase?
Well, it was museums, tourism, it's all sort of under that leisure umbrella. I was working back in the UK in the early 90s, and somebody had seen what I'd done in terms of writing, and offered me the opportunity to launch a magazine.
Wow.
In the UK leisure sector, which I did.
Yeah.
And
What was that?
from. It was called The Leisure Manager.
Right. And just in that space, when that offer comes to you, that comes to you from who? Was it someone that was like a mentor, someone known to you? Did they single you out? How did that happen?
It was a professional body, a bit like AALARA,
like a collective.
a leisure industry body, a bit like AALARA, but in the UK. It had a significant membership because UK market is bigger, and they were looking to do a magazine. And from that, I was given that opportunity to work out how you put a magazine together.
Were you hesitant at all, or you thought, no, this makes sense?
It was a pleasure to do it. I was conscious at the time I was making heaps of mistakes, but you learn from your mistakes as you go along, and then you make different ones. It was the process of actually being given a venture like that to pull together and make it work and get it published. And the three things you need for a good magazine, which is a good readership. That's your fundamental. Then you want advertisers who want to reach that readership, and then the third part is good content that the readership want to read, and each one of those drives the other. And I learnt those fundamentals quite early, and applied them since.
Did you have a big team on that?
No, very small, very small. You think of sort of when you see in the movies,
there's a writer's room.
Yeah, there's a whole floor and the editor's office in the corner, and then the managing editor's office beyond that. No, always worked very small teams, lean teams.
Right.
God, I don't know how I'd manage a big team. I've never really had that opportunity. But working with lean and small teams is a lot of fun. Everybody has an input. Everybody can see what their outcomes are and what they've been able to achieve as part of that, which is very satisfying.
Can you recall when the first magazine, the first issue under your charge came off the press?
Yeah, and exciting then and exciting now.
Even now?
Yeah, it's still that excitement. There's partly trepidation as you open the page and you just have that fear that something's gone wrong in the production, and you've got sort of 70 pages of blank pages or whatever, which fortunately has never happened, but there's still that little bit of trepidation.
Yeah. So when that happens, how do you find yourself in Australia? How do you?
Okay. My wife, who I met in Egypt, was an Aussie girl, and we hit it off.
It just sounds unusual. You meet the love of your life, an Aussie girl, while you're in Egypt and you're out of the UK, and she's from down under. It
was an unusual set of circumstances. That George Michael song, "Different Corner," we could quite easily, our paths could not have crossed.
Yeah.
And sometimes you ponder that, and it's those sort of kind of mysteries of life.
Yeah.
And you think, what would have happened there? But we met. I came out when I was still travelling and stayed with her when she was working in Adelaide. Then we got married, worked in the UK for 4 or 5 years. That was during the time when I launched that magazine.
Right.
Then our older boy was born, and London is a great place to be single or a couple.
Yeah.
It's a rubbish place for children.
It is.
And we thought about what we'll do, and came out to Australia to bring up a family.
Did either of you have a plan in terms of what would be the line of work, or you knew I'm going to set up something here that's very similar to what I'm doing?
We had a few options that we were looking at. One of them was to do something similar here. I was very mindful that there was nothing in the Australian market like what I've been producing in the UK.
I was going to ask you that, yeah.
And that was one of about 3 or 4 options I had. And the great thing I found about Australia is that while then and now, it's common to sort of moan about red tape and things like that. In spite of all the restrictions, regulations, licenses there, it's an incredibly can-do sort of place. And if you've got an idea, there's a lot of people who will give you, in some cases, financial support, but if nothing else, just moral support and guide you. And I find that enormously refreshing, and it was a very different way to work and do business to what I'd always found in the UK, which was very much more hierarchical.
Right.
And that was a real pleasure to be. I mean, one of the things I remember, gosh, I wish I could remember his name, but he was quite a famous guy, at the time, general manager of marketing for Toyota, when Toyota were a massive brand, and he's the guy who dreamt up the Oh What a Feeling campaign.
Right.
And I remember wanting to speak to him, and I phoned up Toyota, and I think within a minute I was speaking to him.
Yeah, you had access
there
that
was
quickly.
no gatekeepers. There in the UK, it would have taken weeks to get, if you got to speak to the guy at all. And this guy was then quite free with his advice.
So why did you reach out to him?
I was looking at the wider leisure market and really sort of marketing opportunities and how they work in Australia, because I had to be conscious that while Australia, we speak the same language and many things are the same, it's very beguiling to think, and people have fallen foul of this by thinking, this worked in the UK, it's automatically going to work here, and vice versa.
Yes.
The two that spring to mind are Marks and Spencer's coming to Australia, where it's never happened and never worked. Bunnings in the UK didn't really work. And these are models that you think, oh God, yeah, similar market, it's going to work. And
what do you think that is? I know it's probably not a quick answer, but what do you think that is?
I think it's too easy to think that because it works in one market and the next market is very similar, speaking the same language especially, and then all sorts of historical links and everything else, that I think people overlook how difficult it will be.
Right.
That there are established competitors who may well work actively against a new outside entity coming into the market, or just overlook that consumers behave differently.
Yeah, okay. This conversation that you have with this gentleman, what does it do for you?
It just, well, one, it was wonderful to actually get to somebody so quickly, but it was just one of many people I spoke to. I was trying to get insights on the market, the industries in general, Australians' leisure time and activities and spending, and a lot of what Australians do is pretty obvious. They love their sport, they love their live entertainment, they like going to the pub and club, and they love the beach, and all those sorts of things. But it was just trying to fill in the gaps between those as to how people behave and how they spend their dollars.
It seems really smart that you did that process before simply just launching in. What gave you the understanding that that's how you need to do it, rather than just coming in and imposing the way that you wanted to do it? What made you cautious in asking those questions? Because you could have gone the other way and been more cavalier.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's true. That's a good question. I guess it's a good lesson in life to ask people who know and not assume that you know it all. Yeah. I guess a bit similarly to some of the examples I've given you about businesses that have failed. One of the motivators for starting the magazine is that we picked in the UK, was that we picked up quite a few Australian subscribers to the magazine, to a UK-based magazine. And I'm aware that, AALARA looks to the USA with AARPA, or looks to how Europeans are operating in the attractions industry, that there's a lot of sort of cross-sharing of information, cross-pollination, if you like, from one market to another, where people learn from others. So that was one of the things that sort of suggested the germ of an idea of Australians who are subscribing to a magazine in the UK, maybe they'll subscribe to one in their own backyard. So that was one of the motivators. But asking, I guess it's always good to ask advice, isn't it? Whether it's of parents, teachers, mentors, if you're lucky enough to find people who sort of think you've got potential and they will guide you along. That's a good question. I sometimes think I am a bit cavalier with things and do bulldoze things through, but I guess in starting that I did ask people who knew a lot more than me.
From the point of conceiving the idea to launching, how long are we talking?
I think there was a lot of planning, and then as with any new business venture, there was a go for it, the go for it day. And I think the go for it day was in September '96. and then we launched in February '97.
Right.
So that was the lead-in time to we thought about this, we've got things in place. Okay, now we're going to do it. Now we're going to target contributors, advertisers, potential readers, and so on.
What were your channels of distribution then? How were you getting it out?
Direct mail, and we still do.
Okay, so it's B2B.
Yeah. Direct mail to a subscriber database. We have tried newsagent distribution. We were aware, and this was pre-internet, that we were aware that we were a very specialist publication. And Australia has a lot of titles. I mean, back then and even now, Australia has a huge number of magazine mastheads per head of population. I think at the time it was the largest per capita in the world.
Right.
But being a very specialist magazine, we tried it for a while. There were various things that meant that side of it didn't work, and it wasn't something we were reliant on. We were always focused on direct mail to industry subscribers, who it's a very different market from going in to buy. To buy new idea or Time or whatever it might be. Yeah.
What was the on release? Was it a slow burn, or was the industry very quick to jump on and say, "Oh, here's a great platform"?
Yeah. One of the things that we did from day one was make links with different associations, AALARA being one. We were very mindful we needed to hit the ground running, and I've always had a back of the envelope sort of calculation. You need a minimum of 5,000 subscribers, readers, to make a magazine work. That's enough readers to interest the advertisers, and then the advertisers drive the content. So we set out to create links with each of the individual industry bodies for the different sectors, and that with there being no one overarching industry body, meant that none of those bodies had the scale to produce their own magazine. So we went to VMA for the venues, we went to the aquatic industry associations, the fitness industry associations, and AALARA as well, to say we will produce a magazine that you can give to your members as a membership benefit. And therefore that gave us the numbers to make the readers to make it all start to add up.
Yeah, right.
And I think we launched with about 4,000 people we were mailing the magazine to, and then went to drive individual subscribers as well, who are people who may not be members of associations or consultants, architects, suppliers, government, and so on.
What was the growth like in that first few years?
We grew quite quickly, so that within a couple of years we would double that subscription base or that readership base to about 8,000. Then we plateaued on 10,000 for a long time, and then strangely enough through COVID readership grew, so we now mail just over 12,000 copies of the print magazine.
How do you attribute growth in that period?
That's a very good one. Partly it's trying to be hit and reach more potential readers and existing readers, that they give them an awareness of the magazine, so that and to hopefully have good content that makes it readable.
Right. It's just interesting, I guess, in that period when a lot of other businesses, I guess, are floundering or holding position or going under, you actually found some growth.
We did. And I often say with the growth of online, at some point we will stop printing a magazine. But I probably said that first about 10 years ago, and I still see no point in the near future where we will stop printing.
Why is that?
It works. It works, and it's still profitable.
Right.
I mean, worst scenario, if all of our advertisers pulled out, well, then we'd have to take a serious look at what we do. But our advertisers, print advertising as well, gives people something tangible.
Are you surprised that you've gone the distance still on?
I'm pleased. I'm not surprised. I mean, the nature of and how we've differentiated our product between the features-based magazine and news-based website has helped us, because you've seen over the last decade or so how daily newspapers have died for the most part because they couldn't keep up with internet, and then they've moved online. But they, for the most part, many regional papers and things like that don't print at all. The city papers do print, but in far smaller numbers. So the market has changed very much, but again, where we're specialists, we're pretty much the only source of information, or the only people who kind of curate and present a collection of industry information. We are pretty much the only people who do that.
Yeah, and that was a question I was going to ask you, is how crowded your specific market is for industry. It doesn't seem like that it's that crowded. It seems like it is really ALM before it's anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, we've never truly, there have been some other publications, but we've never truly had direct competitors. Yeah. And sometimes that's a double-edged sword. We can't say our magazine, you know, like the editor or the publishers of the Sydney Morning Herald and the Australian can say our product, our apple, is better than the other person's orange. We haven't been able to make that comparison, so sometimes that's been a bit of a disadvantage.
How do you avoid the trap of complacency in a situation like that?
Yeah, that's a good one. It's just such a great industry to be in. I mean, we're not directly in it in providing a service to the public, to be able to report on what's going on in the industry and cover it and hopefully represent it in some ways as well. It's good. It's a fun industry to be in. Many another industry, I'm sure, it wouldn't have the same, you wouldn't have the same ongoing motivation. But and the great thing is one's still learning about what's going on, and obviously people are changing how they do business and adapting, and if we can reflect that in what we cover, it's still fun, and it's exciting, to be able to make, again, what I said earlier, make sense of stuff, to join together the dots to present something that people will hopefully learn from and benefit from. And it does come down to the industry just being such fun. I mean, there are so many great things about this industry that we can cover, and what it does for people in terms of how they enjoy themselves, just simply having fun. In some areas, in more active physical activity areas, in terms of how they achieve people and achieve things and attain things. It's great to be part of that and report on that sort of vibrancy and energy. And there are still new developments happening, always new developments happening. Younger people coming into the industry, revitalising it. And I still think, as I probably did 20, 30 years ago, I don't really understand how it all works, but I'll do my best to try and make it easy for other people to understand it, and try to attain so that I can finally get it and can share that and work through the whole mysteries of how different industries work and what the public are doing and what the public want and what people are developing and innovations and so on.
Seems to be a free spirit in you and an entrepreneurial spirit, even when we go back to that hopping around the world and doing these different roles. To kind of change lanes for a moment, for anyone that might be listening that's has an idea of a thing they want to do, or they want to back themselves and try something that might be fresh and unique, what do you say to people that might have self-doubt or wonder if they're able to fully realise their goals or ambitions? You don't seem to have dealt with a wall of doubt about what you're capable of that's brought you to a complete stop. You seem to have been someone that's had a vision and a thought and thought, well, I'm going to now go for this. How do you keep out of your own way, I guess is the question for people that might be thinking about similarly getting an entrepreneurial spirit going?
Yeah, I think essentially Australians in particular are very entrepreneurial anyway. I mean, as a people that are outgoing and confident, and they've got an ability to see things through. And I look at some of the business successes of the last 5, 10, 20 years, and there's been some extraordinary successes of businesses that have started up from someone having that bright idea and have gone for it and have then achieved extraordinary success. I guess at the same time we don't hear about those or hear so much about those businesses that have failed, and sadly the last few years have brought home a fair number of failures as well. I guess you've got to have that mindset that you have a confidence in what you're going to develop, and then temper that with being able to manage it and develop it and fund it and so on. I guess if people have mentors and or backers, that's an important area as well. We've never really had financial backers. We've always been independent in what we do, and that's possibly what I said, where being independent and being unique in what we're doing is a bit of a double-edged sword. I mean, one sector that's grown, and I know it doesn't relate specifically to Parklife, but the fitness industry over the last 15, 20 years, how that has grown, and the franchises and the businesses that have developed in that sector, and one often looks at it, and some research companies as well have suggested the market is approaching saturation.
Right.
And then another half dozen franchises launch. And then you have an extraordinary thing like F45 Fitness, which you see everywhere. That was launched less than 10 years ago in Sydney. It's expanded internationally. It was floated last year for 1.5 billion on Wall Street. with backers including Mark Wahlberg.
Wow.
And there are a lot of similar success stories from that. That's somebody who had a vision, developed it, gone for it, produced a product that's worth a lot more than ALM. But it's extraordinary, that level of success in a market that you would have thought was saturated.
Yes.
And I commend that, and I just, as for lessons one can learn from that, I think it's having the idea and having the confidence, and I guess rolling with the punches as they come along as well, because there will be challenges, and seeing them through as best as you can. Sadly, some businesses don't succeed. We're in a country where hopefully that means people don't end up destitute and the like, and can then try again in some cases. And some business successes come from people who've been in business, failed again, and then eventually succeeded.
What continues to drive you? As a last question, what's the fuel?
Yeah, there's a few things there. It's a great industry to be involved in. Yeah. I love being, having skin in the game, as it were, and trying to make sense of stuff. Still coming back to trying to join up those dots to present something that others can learn from and hopefully benefit from.
It's been terrific to sit with you. I've been aware of you for many years. I think we crossed paths when I was at Wonderland.
That's right.
When we first met, and your name's always been around for as long as I can remember. And to finally get the chance to sit with you and just capture that story is terrific. So thanks for taking time out and being a part of the Park Life series.
Absolute pleasure, Michael, and I hope the Park Life continues to thrive.
Good on you. Thanks, Nigel.
Thanks.